Hey! Let's talk about the Baroque in Northern Europe and how that's different. But same time period. Okay, so now we've got some learning objectives, great ideas for papers here, and I am not kidding, this is good stuff. Very good direction. And here's our timeline. I love how it's so short, but so interesting. Oh my gosh, crazy cool. Okay, so this is Europe in 1648, after the Peace of Westphalia. The agreement that ended the 30 Years' War in 1648 is the Peace of Westphalia. Interesting that it's called peace. P-E-A-C-E. Usually they call it like a treaty or something, right? Okay, Pieter Klaus, Veneta Still Life. Wow, this is a crazy cool painting. I'm always kind of mesmerized by it. And it's not very big. It's like, 14 inches by, I don't know what, 23 inches. So it's not huge. It's kind of small. And the incredible things that we notice about it are, the reflection in this mirror ball and in the glass. Ugh. And did you know, oops, let me just move over here. I don't want to disappear. So this is a Veneta's painting. And art historians call still life compositions with at least one memento mori reference Veneta's. So it's like, you can't be vain because you're going to die just like everybody else. So here we have a skull in reference to memento mori. That means, death is imminent, basically. I can't remember the exact meaning, but also the gold watch is supposedly a memento mori. I guess because it's, I don't know, considered riches. We shouldn't be keeping any riches. That's materialistic, right? Okay, here we have our first Rubens. Peter Paul Rubens, super, super famous artist. And Jan Bruegel. Hey, the artist who combined the innovations of many of the Italian Renaissance and Baroque masters to formulate the first pan-European, and that means of or relating to all or most of the countries in Europe. Pan-European. Interesting. So the guy who started this painting style, pulling all that together, is Peter Paul Rubens. Peter Paul. Okay, here we have his elevation of the cross. Take note at how muscular these people are. Oh my goodness. I hadn't seen this really since someone else. Think about who could it be? The two Italian masters who are the clearest influences on Rubens' elevation of the cross are Michelangelo. Remember all of his musculature? And Caravaggio, all the drama in the light and the darker background. So the way Rubens showed musculature is inspired by Michelangelo. Okay, here we have the consequences of war. Ooh, drama. So this is an allegorical painting, which means it has a moral or a story behind it. And Rubens, it is meant to be a commentary on the ravages of the 30 Years' War. So, consequences of war. It's about the 30 years of war. The fundamental conflicts underlying the 30 Years' War arose from ongoing friction between, guess who? The Catholics and the Protestants. Geez, these guys never give up. There's always something. Okay, here we have another Rubens. Look at those figures. Wow. He is so famous for that. Okay, the figure that is the personification of France, guess who? The helmeted soldier in a blue cape. He is the personification of France, coming to greet Marie de Medici. And we know how important she must have been. She was a Medici. Big money. Okay, here's the Garden of Love. Aw. And you can tell it's a Rubens every time. Just look at the people. Okay, here we have Anthony Van Dyck's Charles I at a Hunt. The influential, I don't even know what I'm thinking there. The influential painter, who was a court portraitist to Charles I of England, is Anthony Van Dyck. Notice how Van Dyck draws our attention to Charles, this guy right here, not just with his fancy clothes, but also by placing him in silhouette against a light sky. So our eyes are drawn to this area. Pretty cool. Pretty cool idea. Good job, Van Dyck. Okay, Clara Peters. Clara Peters' influential still lifes containing bread and fruit are referred to as breakfast pieces. So an artwork is a piece, and I guess because they have breakfast foods, maybe? Sounds right. The painting of inanimate objects such as flowers and fruit is referred to as still life. So this is something that, we haven't really seen before. Still lifes and Benita's paintings. So here we are seeing them. I love this pretzel. Isn't that cool? Pretzel from the 1600s. Awesome. Okay, here we've got Hendrik ter Brueggen, Calling of St. Matthew. So notice here that Brueggen's Calling of St. Matthew echoes the work of Caravaggio. So dramatic light. There's a lot of darkness. So that's Caravaggio's style that everybody wanted to imitate. And here we've got Supper Party, also, again, referencing Caravaggio. This guy is kind of famous. Thought I had a note about him. Maybe we'll come back to it. Okay, so Archers of St. Hadrian. The type of painting Frans Hals, this artist, created in the Archers of St. Hadrian is a portrait. So basically what that means is all of these are real people, and they are meant to look like the real person in real life. The leading portrait painter in Haarlem, isn't that interesting? Haarlem. Who is also known for his lively, relaxed group portraits is Frans Hals. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about him. No, that's not Frans Hals. Lively, relaxed. That doesn't look lively, relaxed. Okay. Maybe we'll come to it. Oh, here we go. Okay. The term that best describes the color palette of Hals, the women regents of the old men's home at Haarlem, is monochromatic, which basically means it is a single color, which I'm guessing is like this pinky brown, with black and white. So it's only shades of a single color, monochromatic, one color. Cool. Judith Leister. Oh, wow. She is really famous. Okay, here's her self-portrait. She is showing herself in the process of painting a genre scene. So this would have been a popular style of artwork to have in your home, and like a musician playing his whatever that is, I don't know, violin, some string instrument. And the reason why she's so elegantly attired is because her family was really wealthy, and so there's a lot of symbolism in paintings in this time period, as we've seen a lot in the past. So she wanted to give her family a good reference. So yes, I come from wealth, had a good life, and here's me at work. So beautiful. Okay, here we've got Rembrandt, another super famous artist. He's Netherlandish, and his use of light to reveal subtleties of mood and character had a great influence on later genres of film and photography. So Rembrandt lighting is something, a terminology photographers still use to this day. I actually have an MFA in photography, so I know a lot about that. And actually, I'm looking at the lighting on me right now. It looks kind of Rembrandtish. So what it is, like one side of the face is dark, the other side is light, and they call it the Rembrandt triangle. So you can kind of see it on my nose. I hate to call attention to myself, but anyway, I'm just noticing that. In his painting, Anatomy Lesson of Dr. Nicholas Tulp, that's this painting right here, the aspect of the traditional group portrait that Rembrandt has modified to enliven the painting is the arrangement of the figures. So, everybody's just all around the subject here. Golly. I don't even want to look too closely at that. I'll get squeamish. Okay, here's probably Rembrandt's most famous work. Everyone just knows this by Night Watch. Okay. What's weird is I didn't even know this. Rembrandt is known to have reduced this painting in size because it was moved from its original location to Amsterdam's town hall. So Night Watch, he had to reduce the size. So I can just imagine what would have existed beyond this frame before he had to cut it down. Kind of sad, but history. Okay, here's another Rembrandt. Ooh, dramatic lighting, gorgeous. This is the Return of the Prodigal Son. In this painting, Rembrandt chooses to focus the light on the face of the forgiving father, accepting his son back into his arms. Here we have one of Rembrandt's so many self-portraits. Oh my gosh. So he's known to have created more than 70 self-portraits. The thing to me that's really interesting about that is those were just the paintings. His drawings, I think he drew himself something like 30,000 times, and like just pencil sketches. And I think that is what led to him being able to do such detailed portraits. Because, say you're an artist and you want to work on portraits, and you don't really have anybody readily available to sit for you. So look in the mirror, practice on yourself, and live and learn. So smart. Here's another one. Let's see, he is 5960. Okay, so this would have been like the year before. So many of these. Okay, this is Christ with the Sick Around Him, and by Rembrandt. The method that he used to create this artwork is engraving and etching. So we remember that from Dürer a few years before. Gosh, what was it? Not that long before this. 1500s, yeah. Okay, Albert Hoyp. So this would be like a genre painting. Family at the Farm. And this is the view of Haarlem from the dunes at Overveen by Ruysdael. So the people shown in the field, kind of tiny down here, in Van Ruysdael's view of Haarlem from the dunes at Overveen, are engaged in the Dutch industrial activity of weaving and bleaching linen. So this would have been something that a lot of people did. And Ruysdael, he specialized in landscapes. Gorgeous. Okay, here's his Jewish cemetery. I love this painting. It kind of reminds me of El Greco's Toledo for some reason. Just like the composition of it. But beautiful. Okay, here's Vermeer. Ooh, another big famous artist. The View of Delft. So things that you want to remember about him is that he is known to have used this tool, or thought to have used a tool, to aid in his depiction of light, because he was considered the virtuoso of light, which is, you know, amazing thing to be known for. So what he did was he used a camera obscura. And if you've never heard of one of those, they kind of predate the camera by, I don't know, 1,000 years or something. So the camera obscura, which means dark room, think of a camera as like a dark box. So it's a box-shaped device, and it's used as an aid for drawing or entertainment. So it's got a tiny hole, like a pinhole, and the light comes through the pinhole. And then on the back wall, it will project a reversed and inverted image of the exact scene. So it's just incredible. And so this is where photography came from. But if you haven't heard of it, you should look it up. Camera obscura, obscura. Neat. Okay, here's the woman holding a balance. Notice that Vermeer uses the light to direct our eyes. And they call these kind of like invisible lines orthogonals. So we've got like, you know, so the perspective of this line is pointing us toward the balance, right, where she's weighing something. And then here we've got another orthogonal at the bottom of the frame. Here, just a line coming down from the side of that artwork. And so notice she's pregnant. She's really pregnant. But all of these lines that are leading our eyes to the important area where she's holding the balance, that's like a device that he used to direct the viewer's gaze. So this is an allegorical painting. So it would have, you know, a story behind it or a moral. Okay, here's the letter. The Dutch artist, Vermeer, who made the subject of much of his art the interiors of Dutch middle-class dwellings, is Vermeer. We're going to talk a little bit more about the middle class here in a minute. So this is allegory of the art of painting, so moral story. And this is also the cover of our text, in case you hadn't noticed. But this is the full painting. And here again he uses a device to separate the space of the viewer, us, from the space of the painting. In the allegory of art, the art of painting is a drawn back curtain. So isn't that interesting? Okay, here's Steen's Feast of St. Nicholas. This artwork shows a Dutch household in a mood that is chaotic and in an uproar. So Feast of St. Nicholas, that would be Christmas, right? And, you know, I don't know. I guess these people had too many children because there's a lot of kids there. Okay, Willem Kalf, still life with late Ming ginger jar. Isn't that cool? So now we're referencing Chinese art history. And I believe in this painting, it is a vanitas. And supposedly there's a gold watch in here somewhere, and that's the reference to the memento mori in this painting. And Rachel Royce, Flower Still Life. Okay, so the interesting thing about this, notice we're in Toledo, Spain. The work of Rachel Royce is emblematic of the Dutch Republic's position as the leading grower and exporter of flowers in Europe. I have actually been to the Netherlands, and one of the few places I've been outside of America. And oh my gosh, the fields of flowers are so gorgeous. So it's still a thing, 300 and some years later. Okay, this is Hyacinth Rigaud's. It's probably Rigaud, Louis XIV. This is such a funny painting to me. Okay, so first of all, the reason that he's pulling back his garment to show his legs, is that he was a ballet dancer when he was young, and he's very proud of his legs. He was a preeminent patron of the 17th century, so he was like big money bags, serious. Oh my gosh, wait till we get into Versailles here. But this guy, he is something else. Can you imagine how cold it must have been to wear all of this? But, so cute. And those little shoes. All right, this is the east facade of the Louvre. The French building of the 17th century that resembles a classical temple front with the sides spread out next to it like wings is the east facade of the Louvre. Classical reference. Okay, and here we've got an aerial view of the palace and gardens of Versailles. The architect who is responsible for the entire plan and arrangement of the park and gardens of Versailles is André Lenotre. Okay, here we've got the Hall of Mirrors. Incredibly wealthy person, Louis XIV. And all of these mirrors are meant to make the hall appear ginormous. You know, it's like echoing and echoing and echoing the size and grandeur of this palace. Okay, here we've got Giardin, Apollo attended by the nymphs of Thetis. Okay, so we got another classical reference, not unusual. Francois Giardin's arrangement of the figures in Apollo attended by the nymphs of Thetis is based on the figural compositions of Nicolas Poussin. Not sure if it's Poisson. Doesn't that mean fish in French? I think so. Here's our baths of Apollo. Look at that, Greek classical reference. And the interior of the royal chapel. Look at the ceiling paintings. My goodness. Again, Versailles. Wow. Versailles. Okay, here we have Église du Duomo by Hardwin Mansart. The element of Italian Baroque architecture that is missing from the Église du Duomo is curved surfaces. I don't really get that statement because this looks like curves to me, but I guess they mean in the structure itself. Here we go, Poussin. In paintings such as Et in Arcadia Ego, Poussin chose to emulate the rational order and grandly severe style of Raphael, so referring to the Renaissance painter Raphael. Okay, here we have another Nicolas Poussin, landscape of St. John on Patmos. So this is a real landscape in the background, real place. The attribute that accompanies St. John in this painting by Poussin is the eagle. So he's got the eagle with him. And here, Burial of Fauchion, Nicolas Poussin again. And this is Claude Lorraine, landscape with cattle and peasants, so that would have been a genre, landscape. And here we have Louis Lenain, Family of Country People. The dignified demeanor of the subjects of Lenain's Family of Country People is most similar to that of Hall's work, Franz Hall's, The Women Regrets of the Old Men's Home at Harlem's. Remember that painting that was monochromatic with all the old women? They're just kind of dignified, right? Okay, so, this is so terrible. The artist who created one of the first pictorial records of the human disaster armed conflict leaves in its wake is Jacques Kellot. So, a hanging tree. Oh my goodness, how awful that people did these things. But, yep, the miseries of war makes sense. Georges de la Tour, Adoration of the Shepherds. The title of this painting is by Georges La Tour is Adoration of the Shepherds. Georges de la Tour, his dramatic use of light in Adoration of the Shepherds suggests his familiarity with the work of the Italian artist, guess who? Caravaggio. Dark background, dramatic lighting, bold colors. Inigo Jones, Banqueting House. Whenever I hear the name Inigo, I think of Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride, if you've never seen that movie. The period that English architect Inigo Jones produced most of his work is 1600 to 1650. Inigo Jones adopted the design principles of the Venetian architect Andrea Palladio and into his own work. So you might remember the Villa La Rotonda. Remember Palladio was so famous for his villas. And here we've got an artwork by Christopher Wren, super famous artist again, architect, let's say. St. Paul's Cathedral shows many recognizable design influences on Wren's design. These include Michelangelo's Dome of St. Peter's. Yeah, I get that. Borromini's Facade of Sant'Ivo alla Sapienza. Very similar. And the Palladio's Facade of San Giorgio Maggiore. So that was a Palladio reference right there. So when this guy, Christopher Wren, was only 25, he was appointed to the position of Professor of Astronomy in London. How about that? I would like that job. In the Church of St. Paul's in London, which is this place, Christopher Wren integrated Palladian, French, and Italian Baroque features. Quite a combo. Hey, here's some additional notes. It's so interesting how important the middle class became. So they became almost like the new rich, because there wasn't just the rich and the poor. Now we've got middle class. And mostly they were merchants. So if you're a fan of Shakespeare, you might be thinking of Merchant of Venice. Great story. Wow. So now we're getting into the middle class as patrons, and they loved still lifes, so they were buying that left and right. Interesting. And then again, discussion questions, great for paper writing, and that's it. See you soon.